Book review: Big Dumb Eyes, Stories from Simpler Mind by Nate Bargatze. Plot summary: in his #1 New York Times bestselling debut, Big Dumb Eyes, Stories from Simpler Mind, stand-up comedian Nate Bargatze brings his signature deadpan delivery and everyman charm to the written page. The result is heartfelt, laugh-out-loud collection of essays that delve into his life, his mishaps, and his misadventures, all filtered through the lens of someone who earnestly believes he may have once been genius, only to have it knocked out of him by seventh-grade accident involving cliff, rock, and dented skull, structured loosely around themes from his life: childhood, adulthood, marriage, work, and travel. Bargatze's essays are steeped in self-deprecation, observational absurdity, and healthy skepticism toward anything requiring too much thinking. The book opens with a legendary origin story. Nate, once bright and ambitious boy with dreams of electrical engineering or neurosurgery, took fateful tumble that changed the course of his life. His family, it should be noted, firmly denies the incident ever happened, but as Bargatze would say, why let facts ruin good story? From there, readers are invited into Bargatze's offbeat but oddly relatable world, beginning with tales of his youth in Old Hickory, Tennessee. He recounts his days growing up in simpler time, the 80s and 90s, when kids roamed freely and seatbelts were suggestion. He introduces us to Old Blue, his first car, hopelessly unreliable Mazda with stick shift improvised from tennis ball. And we follow him through his earnest and sometimes bewildering attempts to understand the world around him. Much of the humor in Big Dumb Eyes comes from Bargatze's unapologetic confusion about everyday things most people take for granted. He reflects on why certain words like shopping mean different things to men and women, and how his wife to explain basic grocery decisions to him, including the difference between going to the store and just running in for one thing. He also wrestles with household responsibilities, sharing how he once spent hours watching TV while pretending to look for plumber, and how he debates the usefulness of making the bed when you're just going to get back in it. Marriage, for Bargatze, is comedy of misunderstandings and compromises. His stories about life, his wife, who comes across as long-suffering yet admirably patient, are filled with affection even as he admits to losing most arguments, especially about chores and dieting. Running theme is Bargatze's inability to stick to healthy eating, coupled with his inexplicable confidence that he's doing fine. Whether it's counting chicken nuggets as protein source or trying to convince his wife that he did drink water that one time in 2019, his reflections on married life strike chord with anyone who's ever had to defend their lifestyle choices against logic. The book takes slightly more philosophical turn when Bargatze begins to explore his travel experiences, particularly as Southern. Encountering the wide world, he recounts how Northerners love to ask if he believes in dinosaurs and how baffled he is by sushi. How does California roll come from ancient Japan? He wonders aloud. There's deeper commentary lurking beneath the laughs about regional identity, the invisible cultural walls between North and South, and the little things that divide us like sweet tea and snow tires. One of the standout chapters focuses on his early attempts at adulthood, particularly the grim tale of his first apartment in Chicago. Bargatze paints hilariously horrific picture of rat-infested studio where he once found himself, contemplating how many vermin were too many before moving out. These anecdotes are never framed with bitterness. Instead, they form part of a broader tapestry of becoming, of stumbling towards something like maturity through sheer accident and repetition. Bargatze also pulls back the curtain on life as touring comedian. He reveals the weirdness of life on the road, the unpredictability of crowds, and the oddities of fame. Particularly the kind of fame where you're recognizable just enough to be awkward, but not enough to skip airport security. Fans of his Netflix specials, The Tennessee Kid, the greatest average American hello world, will recognize his rhythms and themes here, but there's added depth in the long-form storytelling that allows him to linger on details he can only sketch on stage. Though Bargatze maintains that he's no genius, in fact the opposite, his comic sensibilities are razor sharp. What makes Big Dumb Eyes stand out from the typical comedian memoir is not just the humor, though there's plenty of that, but the warmth and accessibility of his voice. He's not trying to impress, he's trying to connect. He pokes fun at himself so readers don't have to, and in doing so, he gives them permission to laugh at their own flaws too. By the time the book wraps up, readers will have learned very little in terms of practical knowledge. No deep life hacks, no psychological insights, no masterclass in self-improvement. And that's exactly the point. Big Dumb Eyes is in many ways anti-memoir, celebration of the mundane, the mediocre, and a mildly confused. It is, as the subtitle suggests, stories from simpler mind, but within that simplicity lies an unexpected brilliance, the kind that sneaks up on you like punchline delivered with perfect timing. Ultimately, Bargatze's first foray into authorship is resounding success, not just in sales and accolades, but in spirit and world that often takes itself too seriously. Big Dumb Eyes is a welcome reminder that life is funniest and most honest when we admit we don't have all the answers. And sometimes it's the dent in your skull, real or imagined, that makes you see the world a little clearer, even if your eyes are big and dumb. Book review. There's something deeply satisfying about hearing great story well told, especially when it's told by someone who doesn't take themselves too seriously. With Big Dumb Eyes, stories from simpler mind, Nate Bargatze, the Tennessee-born stand-up comedian known for his dry wit, clean humor, and deadpan delivery, proves that his comedic genius isn't confined to the stage. His first book is a collection of essays, memories, and musings, all wrapped in signature self-deprecating charm. It's not just a string of jokes on paper. It's an authentic, laugh-out-loud look at the world through the eyes of self-proclaimed non-genius who's made career out of not knowing what's going on most of the time. Bargatze opens the book with an origin story that's part personal myth, part tall tale, and entirely on brand. According to him, he was once brilliant, bound for greatness as an engineer, brain surgeon, maybe math professor who taught the hardest math on earth. That is, until the summer after 7th grade, when he fell off cliff, hit his head on rock, and emerged with dent in his skull and dim future. The result, he says, was life path that veered sharply away from academic brilliance and straight towards stand-up comedy. His family, as the footnote humorously reminds us, disputes this entire story, which only adds to its comic value. That origin story sets the tone for what's to come. Book built around the everyday absurdities of men trying to make sense of the world without overcomplicating it. There are no epiphanies here, no lofty revelations or attempts to tie life's big questions ID with misunderstandings, mishaps, and minor victories. Told with kind of wide-eyed sincerity that makes even the most mundane experiences sound extraordinary. Much of Big Dumb Eyes revolves her Bargatze's sudden upbringing and his wide-eyed and often bewildered journey through adulthood. He invites us into his world with stories about his first car, beat-up messy dub, Old Blue, complete with tennis ball for stick shift. The story is told not with nostalgia but with affectionate amusement, an acknowledgement that even inanimate objects in his life seem just a little off. It's a pattern that continues throughout the book. Parade of slightly broken things, awkward encounters, and comically low expectations. One of the book's greatest strengths is Bargatze's ability to laugh at himself without trying to be the butt of the joke. There's warmth, his humor, and underlying sense of decency and self-awareness that elevates the material beyond just funny. He doesn't punch down, and he doesn't puff himself up. He simply shares what happened. Whether it's the rat-infested first apartment he shared with friend and few too many rodents, the peculiarities of being Southerner on the road, including the perennial dinosaur debate, or his desperate attempts to avoid grown-up responsibilities like paying bills, scheduling home repairs. Marriage is a recurring topic, and it's handled with gentle, loving exasperation. Bargatze's wife appears in several stories as the practical, clear-headed counterpart to his often confused and distracted self. He recounts debates about chores, disagreements over grocery shopping, and the true meaning of shopping, an hilarious attempt at dieting that mostly involved pretending to enjoy healthy food. But even in the jokes, it's clear that Bargatze respects wife deeply. The humor in these stories comes not from mocking her, but from his earnest, bumbling attempts to meet her halfway in a world he only half understands. Another standout feature of the book is Bargatze's treatment of travel, specifically the way regional quirks and cultural misunderstandings come fodder for comedy. His Southerner touring the country and the world, he highlights the odd questions Northerners ask him, the strange foods he encounters, for one deeply confuses him, and the absurdity of being famous enough to be recognized, but not famous enough to avoid the indignities of commercial travel. There's quite brilliance in the way he finds humor in the liminal spaces, the airport's rental cars, hotel lobbies, where nothing quite makes sense, but everyone pretends it does. Bargatze's voice on the page mirrors the one fans know from his Netflix specials like The Tennessee Kid, The Greatest Average American, and Hello World. The pacing, tone, and delivery are so pitch perfect that you can almost hear him reading the words aloud. That said, the book is more than just transcriptive stand-up bits. The longer form allows Bargatze to dive deeper into stories, to add layers of reflection and absurdity that wouldn't fit into 5-minute routine. And while the book is clearly intended to entertain, there are occasional moments of genuine emotion, glimpses of vulnerability beneath the laughter that make the humor even richer. One such moment comes when Bargatze talks about his father, magician and former clown, who also worked in the ministry, the eccentricities of his upbringing. Growing up with dad who did magic tricks at church, are told with fondness and without irony. Bargatze mined these memories for laughs at his father's expense Instead, he presents them as part of wonderfully weird legacy that helped shape his own approach to life and performance. There's subtle through line here about the importance of family, resilience, and finding your path, even if it's not the one you plan. The title, Big Dumb Eyes, is a nod to how Bargatze believes the world sees him, someone who looks perpetually confused, overwhelmed, or both. It's a clever bit of branding, but it also speaks to deeper truth. Bargatze isn't pretending to be dumb, but he's presenting character who is constantly grappling with the ridiculousness of life in sincere and open-hearted way. His big dumb eyes are a lens through which we all might view the world, especially when the rules make sense, the signs are unclear, and we're all just doing our best to muddle through. Stylistically, the book is breezy and conversational with short chapters that feel like individual stand-up sets or podcast episodes. The prose is simple and unadorned, which works perfectly for the material. Bargatze doesn't try to wax poetic or offer sweeping philosophical conclusions. He's not aiming for literary brilliance. He's aiming to connect, to entertain, maybe to make you feel a little less alone in your confusion about sushi, shopping, or the appeal of kale. If there's critique to be made, it's that the book leans heavily on certain style of humor, subtle, observational, often built around the premise of not understanding basic things. For readers who aren't fans of this style, the repetition of the confused Everman bit may feel at times a little too consistent, but for Bargatze's fan base, and clearly its large one, given the book's bestseller status, the repetition is part of the charm. You don't come to Nate Bargatze for hot takes or edgy rants. You come to him for something gentler, more grounded, and endlessly endearing in cultural landscapes saturated with angry comedians, shock value memoirs, and performers trying to out-outrage one another. Big dumb breath of fresh air. It's a reminder that humor doesn't have to be mean-spirited to be hilarious, and that sometimes the funniest stories are the ones that revolve around nothing much at all. It's also a reminder that comedy at its best reveals the quirks of everyday life, the oddities we overlook, the patterns we accept without question, and the tiny moments that bind us together. Whether you're already a fan of Nate Bargatze or encountering his voice for the first time, Big Eyes offers funny, feel-good, utterly human reading experience. It's the kind of book you can read in short bursts or devour in one sitting, the kind you'll want to quote to your friends, and the kind that will make you laugh out loud, then laugh again when you try to explain the joke. In short, Big Dumb Eyes, Stories from Simpler Mind is more than just a collection of humorous essays. It's a warm, witty look at what it means to stumble through life with curiosity, humility, and appreciation for the ridiculous. And in a world that often demands too much thinking, sometimes it's relief to spend some time in simpler mind.